Today we're doing the long-awaited book review for Mystic Dylan's Candle Magic for Beginners in just a moment. Hey guys, I'm Mel from Mel's Divination. I'm the owner, the operator, and the creator here. And on Wednesdays, we do Witchy Wednesdays. Now, this can include anything, including book reviews, tarot cards, divination, spirituality, and much more. Today, we're doing a book review. Now, I've been slacking on putting out book review videos. I think I had promised you guys like every couple of months I'd do one, and I fell very far behind this summer. So we're doing this book. And then there's a back as well. This book is called Candle Magic for Beginners, Spells for Abundance, Love, and Healing, and it's by Mystic Dylan. Now, this is the first book Mystic Dylan ever published. I believe there are 3 now, but this is the only one I have personally purchased. As a side note, there are details about this book review that I will be sharing in the membership only section. So if you're looking for further details, a little bit more tea, a little bit more deeper of a review, a significantly longer review, check that out. You'd have to be in the Chariot group to receive the behind the scenes, like extra footage, extra offers of footage. Now, I did want to also say with the membership group, the link is in the description box below, and you can find all of my links in the first link in the description box. For the rest of the video, we're going to break this book down. Now, this came out, I didn't even write it down, in 2020. It came out in 2020. You can get it on Amazon. If you'll notice that I've taken a bazillion notes, that is going to be in my more detailed read. This is more of just like a basic, like overall, okay? The book is broken up into 10 chapters. There's 2 parts, and at the end, there's a bunch of resources that are listed and available. Part 1 is about the power of fire and transformation. This covers candle correspondence colors. It covers cleansing, prep, and intention setting, a history of candle magic, and types of candles that are available. For instance, tea lights versus pillars, things like that. Part 2 is more the spell work of this. It's all of part 2 is spells and spells only. So this is transformative spells for candle magic is what part 2 is called. And this covers love spells, healing, protection, abundance, and enlightenment. Now, every spell is a candle magic spell work, okay? That's the one thing they all have in common. Now, each chapter, there's a chapter for love, a chapter for healing. It's broken down into chapters per topic. Each chapter covers a bunch of different things. So multiple spells are in each chapter, mostly working with some kind of goddess or deity. There's only a few spell works in the entirety of part 2 that doesn't work with an outside source of spirit, okay? And the reason why I say outside source of spirit is there's Egyptian ones, there's I believe Roman ones, there's voodoo ones, so it's kind of like all over the place. And there are instructions about how to work with each spirit in each individual spell that it's representative of. Now, the one other thing I want to say about the spell section is he does provide step-by-step instructions for every spell. And it can be as minimal as 7 steps and as big as, I think the biggest one I saw was like 23 or 24 steps, okay? They go from basic to very complex. There are some spells that are really easy, and there's some spells that involve a lot of ritual and chanting. Now, overall, the book overall, I give it like a 3 out of 5. It's good / okay. It's not terrible, but I wouldn't go as far as saying I absolutely love it either. There are some elements like the breakdown of how to use what candle format and why for what spell work. I love that. I don't think I have multiple candle magic books, and I believe that's the only one I've seen be covered with that. So like I said, tea lights versus chime candles versus pillar candles, etc. He really does go into detail there, and I do give a lot of credit for that. I do think that that is very valuable. And if I keep this book, if I don't turn around and sell it, it will be for that purpose alone, the main purpose anyway. Now, I would not say this book is for beginners, even though it's called the beginner's guide, because there's a reason why. There's some options, opinions, formats, and approaches that he discusses, but many relevant, important beginner things are left out. For instance, he doesn't really cover grounding. He doesn't really cover different formats for cleansing. He does, but he doesn't. I'm going to explain it a little bit more, but that's just a brief example. If you're looking for real big details, definitely hop over to the Chariot membership, and that video will be coming up. It's not out yet because I'm still working on finishing the extensive details of the book that I'm putting down about it. One example is when he shares consecration and cleansing, he shares a specific ritual type approach. It reminded me of a Wicca approach. And this approach is great. He explains it very detailed, but he doesn't offer, suggest, or even mention other approaches. So he doesn't even say something as simple as, this is what I like to do what works for you, or take what resonates, or this isn't the only approach. That's all he would have needed to say, is this isn't the only approach, there's plenty of others. It just sounded very like this is the only way. And I didn't love that, because it's not the only way. And I understand that he's writing a book about his approach to candle magic, and that's great, but he doesn't clarify that anywhere. So I don't know if that's because this is his first book. I don't know if that's just because it's him. I don't know. But that's, I can't judge the purpose, but that is one big reason why I'm saying it's not for super, like if you have never done spell work before, do not start it with this book. You need to learn the basics before you get into the spells of this book. Because like I said, the spells are kind of detailed, and there's some things that he leaves out. So, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. Now that leads me to my biggest critique, and this is not just a slam video. I want to be clear about that, but I do have to give the critique where it is needed, and I also do give the points where they are earned, right? So my biggest critique here, I've been tongue-tied, is the approach and tone of voice, particularly at the beginning. It felt somewhat condescending and egoic flexing of muscles, especially around the candle magic history and getting into a little bit of the details of the kinds of candles. There was something about the tone of voice that didn't sit well with me. It felt there was a lot of repetition, and not repetition that was needed, like a lot of big really big words that were really unnecessary. There was some excess there, just look at how much I know. That's how I felt he came off. I'm not saying that's what he intended, and I'm not saying that's who he is as a person, but that's what it felt like. I tried to read this book from the point of view of somebody that has never done spell work before. This is the first book I've picked up, and coming from that point of view. There was some parts in there that I felt were scattered and irrelevant. And even with all of that, there was still no mention of there's other approaches. None. No acknowledgement at all about anything in that book. So other herbs, other types, other points of view, other crystals, other oils, nothing. So that's just something that I noticed a lot, because I make it a point to say that to you guys a lot in my videos, because it's true. Because a lot of people ask, especially when they're just starting out, I don't want to do anything wrong. And it's not wrong if it's right for you. Okay. So that I kind of like, I didn't like that authoritative. I know when you write a book, you need to sound like you know what you're talking about. And I get that, but it was more than that. I hope that makes sense. The spell casting steps were somewhat confusing, not every single time, but in some of the spells, he left things out that he should have covered. And then in some spells, he did cover them. So it was a little bit inconsistent. For instance, I noticed in one spell, he said step 1 is to cleanse and consecrate and charge the candle. And in a different spell, multiple other spells, he didn't mention that. And then sometimes he did mention it. So as a beginner, you wouldn't know, oh, he didn't say that, so I guess I shouldn't do it. Because he said it in this one, but he didn't say it in this one. So that was confusing to me. And then there was a couple of other things that were a little bit unclear as far as like when a spell was, I'm trying to think of the example, when there was like a 3-day spell that he was talking about, he didn't clarify if the spell work was for 3 days only, or if the day you're starting was day 1 and then there's 3 more days. That was confusing as well as a beginner. As a beginner, I figured it out. I believe it's 3 days, but as a beginner, he also did a lot of things with the number of 3 as well, which is also, I believe, a Wiccan approach, which is fine. But that was one of the things, and he didn't really explain where that came from. Okay, now my final critique. This is it. This is the last negative thing I have to say, and then I'm going to go over the likes. I saved the best part for the end. My final critique is his spell work was all over the map. At least that's how it felt to me. It was organized in the sense of each chapter was by topic. So love, all the spells were about love, were in the love section. That was fine. So I do have to give credit there. It was more like in the love section, there was all these different pantheons and approaches and points of view. And it felt, as somebody that would be new to this, it felt overwhelming. It felt disorganized and overwhelming to me, let alone to somebody new. So in one spell, he's talking about Marie Laveau and how to make a altar for her and do these rituals for her, and how you need to do specific things to work with that spirit. And in the next spell, he's talking about Apollo, the sun god. And then the next spell, he's talking about some other god. And then in the next spell, he's not talking about any gods. So that's what I mean by it was all over the map. It was like Egyptian, it was Roman, it was voodoo, it was witchcraft, and it was kind of scattered in that sense. And he never really explained where that train of thought came from or why. Now, the reason why I bought this book, just to backtrack for a quick second, is because I used to follow him and Adela Levine. They were called The Witch and the Medium. They had a podcast, which is still up on Spotify if you're interested. And I felt like their information was very, very good. But I'm not in love with this book. I don't hate it. I wouldn't say you should run out and get it. If you're looking for extra details of things that can be helpful as a resource, in one of your resources, not your only resource, I would say get it. But if this is your only resource, I would say go with something else. I hope that makes sense. Now, my point with the spell work being disorganized, there wasn't a lot of commonality between them. The only real common thing was like, oh, they all fell under the love spell, or they all fell under the healing spell. And now some books are like that, but some books aren't. So it was clustered for me because I have a lot of neurodivergent stuff with the way that my brain works. And that, I think, is why it was overwhelming for me. And I'm not even a beginner. Now, overall, let's talk about my overall likes that I really liked. I did like that the chapters were really broken down by topic. I did like how at the beginning of every single chapter, no matter the chapter, it has like a little blurb that's going to be covered in that chapter, like what you can expect to know during this chapter. So maybe when you're using it for a resource, that's not the chapter you need, you jump to the next one. So I like that there's like a teeny summary at the beginning. So that would be very beneficial in the sense of if it's a resource and you're looking for something specific, it's nice and fast to jump to another topic. I did like some of the history of the candle magic that was provided. What I didn't like about it was the approach to it, but it was nice to know some of that history. So there was a little like, it was good, but it wasn't good, if that makes sense. It was a little bit too much. And then at the beginning of every spell chapter, so we're not talking about regular chapters, we're talking about the spell one. So like the spell chapter of love, there was a little chart. I'm trying not to hit my microphone. There was a little chart before he got into the spells. And each chart for that section broke down very, very basic tools is what I'll call it. But type of candle to use, color to use, oils that connect with that type, herbs, I believe. I think that's it. Crystals that went with that type. Did I say crystals already? I might have. So there's that. But again, he never comments and says you can use other things too. Like these are it. This is it. This is all you can use for these. And that I don't love. It's very boxed in. I don't like feeling boxed in. I think that's what it is. But I do like having that like little guide, that little like, okay, I got these. That's really my entirety of the review. I'd say, like I said at the beginning, 3 out of 5 stars. It's a good resource, but you definitely need to learn the basics before you attempt it, because he doesn't get very deep about the basics. Most basic spell books and most basic beginner witchcraft books don't cover a lot of those topics. So I'm not going to say he's terrible for not doing that, because a lot of authors don't. And that's one of the reasons why when I covered the Green Witch and the spells for the protection spells that I did, I'll link them up here. I loved that she went into at least a little bit of mentioning every single thing. That approach I love, because even if you're not going to go into super deep detail, at least you've acknowledged it. And if people don't understand or don't know, then they can go and look into more of it. They can go find more out. But that wasn't even an option here. And that's the piece I don't like. So in the back of it, we did have, I'll name you some of the spells too. So I don't know if I can show you guys. So he has charts behind it too. And I'm not going to show you all the details of the charts, but he has charts. So tables of correspondences, basics of candle colors, basics of herbs, very basic. There's like 12 herbs. There's not a lot. It's not an herb book. It's a candle magic book. Basics of oils, days of the week, lunar cycles. Oh, that is one thing I forgot to mention when I put my notes together. For every spell, he does say when it is best to do the spell. So for instance, if it is, because there's a list of spells right here. Aphrodite's beautiful beauty ritual. So Aphrodite, that's another one. Mental health magic, Kemetic flame of protection, lucky cat candle, that's voodoo or hoodoo. I'm not quite sure actually. Sun and moon happiness spell, and druid's circle of serenity. Druids are Celtic or Norse. So like I said, the spells are kind of all over the place. So he does cover though when it is best, according to him, when it is best when the moon is in whatever position. And I don't mean like, oh, it's in Capricorn. I mean waning, waxing, full, new. Most of them were waning or waxing from what I recall. And then he tells you the best day of the week. So if it's a Tuesday or if it's a Wednesday or whatever. And I don't believe he explains why. I don't remember. I don't believe he explains. If you guys read this and you know, if he does explain why, comment it down below. I don't know if he explains why. The one other thing that I see on the back of the book that I totally forgot to mention also, because I've taken so many notes, I've started to swim in them. He also talks about how to dispose of spells for the most part. I believe he talks about it at the end. As part of all of the steps, he talks about what to do with the remains of the spell work. So that part I liked as well. I really did like that. So there's, like I said, there's positive and negatives. It's like that with every book. I've never even written a book. So who am I? You know, I'm just talking about how it is for me to read. And I hope you enjoyed this. If you're looking for the more detailed one. So obviously this was, as I'm finishing up, this video is 20 minutes. Once I edit it down, it'll probably be more like 16. The longer version is going to be very long. It's going to be probably at least 40 minutes because I'm not even done taking all of these notes that I'm showing you guys. I'm not even done it. And I wanted to do it justice of really breaking it down. So if you're interested in checking out on the real breakdown of this book, hop over to the membership section. It will be posted in the Chariot section. Not yet though, so I'll announce it when it's time. I hope you guys have a great week. I'll see you all soon. Bye.